Hey everybody, this is Troy over at Uncomfortable Truths. Thanks for checking me out. So today we've got quite the take coming from Morning Joe, who they are suffering the loss of a loved one, it seems like, because Nikki Haley, of course, did not flourish in Iowa as much as the Democrats were seemingly expecting her to do so. The MSNBC and the CNN crowd is very upset for some reason that Nikki Haley didn't perform as well as she was expected to. And so some of these places now, the mainstream media is just kind of going through, making up their excuses. They're still trying to come up with some sort of rationale for why Donald Trump's crazy victory in Iowa is actually not as good as everybody thinks, even though he not only beat the nearest candidate, Ron DeSantis, by over 30 points, but he beat everybody in the entire field put together. So if you took all of Donald Trump's opponents, put them all together and divvied up all of their votes and just have Donald Trump still wins. But we're going to have Morning Joe invite somebody like Claire McCaskill on here to explain to people why, no, this actually still isn't as good for Trump. Frankly, it's quite the cope, but I do think it's important for us to kind of keep an eye on what some of these mainstream news outlets are saying. And so anyway, without any further ado, here is Claire McCaskill at her finest.
Last night, not a big surprise. Donald Trump won by about.
Sorry to pause it already. What do you mean not a big surprise? You guys have been telling us for weeks now that Nikki Haley is on the rise and that Donald Trump better watch out. Things aren't as locked in. And then he went and got over half of the vote. So yeah, it definitely is a surprise to a lot of these people here. And also, they just say, well, he won by about the amount we expected. Why didn't you just come out and say he won over half of the vote? I mean, that would be how a more honest take, but that doesn't seem to be what they're going for here.
Morning, almost half of Republican voters voted for someone other than Donald Trump last night, which is a pretty stunning statistic when you consider he was president of the United States and sort of
he's not an incumbent because he's not sitting in the White House right now. That's what incumbent actually means. So you see what I mean about the cope? Just about everything that comes out of this guy's mouth is some sort of spin trying to make it look like Trump's actually doing horribly, even though he just, trounced the entire place. Like he won everything just about. So I think there might have been one county where Trump didn't actually take it. So it was a historic victory.
Ways from the result last night.
Well, first of all, 50-50 for an incumbent really sucks. This is not for Trump. I don't care how they spin it. I get it that he won more delegates than the other candidates, but he got 50% of the vote in his own party being an incumbent president. As you guys have said, that's not good.
Okay, so even look at the graph that they're putting up. Trump has 51%, and then DeSantis and Haley together have about 40. So just that graph shows you that, out of these people, you're showing that he has 51. And when she says something insane, he got more delegates. Yeah, well, that's how you win the election. Aren't you paying any attention? This is how he won, in 2016. He got more of the electoral votes. That's the game. You're trying to get more delegates. So you're brushing that aside. He got more delegates because, the people were voting for him, but that doesn't mean that things are going good. No, that's actually exactly what it means. Anyway, let's listen to these clowns a little bit more.
Spent on negative ads. $70 million was spent by DeSantis and Haley, only $11 million by Trump. Of that money, most of it was negative ads against DeSantis and Haley. No negative ads against Trump. There was no negative ads against Trump, and he still only managed 50% of the vote. Can you imagine having an election where your opponents refuse to run a negative ad?
She might actually have something to the fact that they weren't going to run a negative ad. Well, the fact is, if they ran negative ads, they probably would have gone down in the polls because the base likes Trump. There's some people that say, hey, DeSantis did a great job on COVID, or I like Nikki Haley's policy for whatever reason that may be the case. But there are people that I'm sure, agree with her on some stuff. But if they ran negative ads against somebody that's beloved by the base, their numbers wouldn't go up, they'd go down. And also, she's talking about how they spent over $70 million in ads and Trump only spent $11 million. So they spent Trump almost 7-1. They outspent him and he still came out on top. And she's trying to spin this like it's some sort of a loss on the Trump side. Trump was literally outspent, almost 7-1 and still came away with over half of the entire vote. So these people are just living in a la land universe. And no matter what happens, they're going to say it was bad for Trump right up until he walks back up into the White House. It's the same thing that's happened in the past. They would say, well, no, this is going to be the final nail in Trump's coffin. And they'd say, oh, well, Ben Carson, he's really going to stick it to him. And then this time it was Ron DeSantis. Now it's Nikki Haley. They say, well, even Chris Christie's against him. This stuff doesn't stop Trump. I mean, so this idea that you're going to come out here and say that he lost when he got more delegates is wild, like absolutely wild.
So this, all the Democrats need is for an aggressive campaign to make sure that our base stays together, that everyone understands what's at stake, that women of America understand what this man did to our freedom in this country, and to grab that 25 to 30% of the Republican Party that said last night very clearly, nah, I don't really want to go there.
That's all I can listen to Claire McCaskill. But let's say that she's on to something and there is a 25 to 30% of the Republican Party, which I don't know where she's getting those numbers from, just because somebody might have gone to Nikki Haley or to Ron DeSantis or even Vivek. It doesn't mean that they're going to vote for Biden. Like, this is what she's saying is like, oh, this is actually really great news for the Democrats. The Democrats are not going to take Iowa. There's no way at this point they're likely to beat Trump in the general election. So if she thinks that 25 to 30% of primary voting Republicans are going to swing the election for the Democrats, she's got another thing coming. And she also is going around saying like, hey, all we have to do is keep our base together. Yeah, well, that is actually probably true. The issue is you can't keep the base together because the economy is not going well. Inflation's out of this world. We're tiptoeing to war with Russia. We're now tiptoeing to war with Iran. And also, I think recently Joe Biden was kind of trying to make friends with China, but before he was being super aggressive about Taiwan. I mean, Biden is doing horrible on the foreign policy front. He's literally trying to get us into war with every superpower in the entire country. And along with this, young people are fleeing Biden because he didn't do any of the stuff he promised on the college debt. You also have people like in the Arab community, lots of Arabs are fleeing. Lots of people that are concerned about the border, living in border towns, or even now you have folks like in the Midwest. They're saying, hey, we've got tons of immigrants coming here. We don't have them vetted. Like, we're concerned about this stuff. And she just brushes it off. Well, she might be right. If everything was going really well and we just pretended that all of these problems don't exist, then sure, it'd be really easy to keep your base together. But when we have all of these problems under Democratic leadership, why would you think that everybody would be in a rush to go out and support the Democrats? The Democrats are so worried about Biden because he can't spit a sentence out that makes any sense that they literally aren't even having any debates. There's no debates. They've changed New Hampshire to South Carolina to be the first state that they're doing because Biden needs the edge to make sure that he actually wins, because some of these other candidates might actually have a chance of beating Biden out if it's not something where the DNC gives him every single advantage possible. So anyway, everybody, things are not going well for the Democrats. They're trying to spin Trump's historic win in Iowa as some sort of a loss for him, which just on its face should have you thinking like, well, this is probably nonsense. And honestly, a lot of this is just cope because they know that they are losing people left and right in their own party, and they don't think that Joe Biden is actually going to be able to beat Donald Trump in an election. So this is why the game, since they are now seeing that Trump is certainly going to be the Republican nominee, is that they want to get him off of the ballot. They just want to say, hey, you're ineligible to run. The only reason they want to do this is because they are afraid and terrified that there is no way that they can beat him in the ballot box. So they just want to take him off of the ballot completely. But anyway, everybody, I appreciate you taking time to watch. Go ahead and hit like and subscribe. I appreciate the heck out of it. And we'll talk to you soon. Take care.